Hello, and thank you for joining me today. If this is your first time visiting, I certainly appreciate you giving me an opportunity, and I hope that you'll find this information on my channel useful. For those that are returning, as always, thank you for your continued support. It would really help me out if you guys would like and comment my videos in the comment sections. I do read those, and I try to respond back to every comment that's put down there, try to help people that are asking questions. Today's not going to be so much of a repair video as it's going to be a preventive maintenance video. Those that keep up, you know about the 2000 Honda Accord that I own. It has 320,000 miles on it, and I have rebuilt the engine in the last 3,000 or 4,000 miles. Other than some nagging things that have come up along the way, the engine has ran perfectly, and I've not had any kind of issue, I believe, with the rebuild. There was a couple of idle issues that I finally cleaned up, and then I had a water usage thing, and I've explained in previous videos about the head gasket on that, but it does have a brand new head gasket on it. It's using zero water now, and it stays nice and cool. Now, coming up next week, I have a trip to Texas planned. If you haven't figured it out, I live in North Carolina. This is going to be about a 14-hour trip to Texas. It's going to start off in East Texas, and then later in the week, I'm going to drive to West Texas. That'll be another 6 hours, and then the return trip, of course, is going to be over 20 hours coming back. And I've elected to use the 2000 Honda Accord. The 93 Civic that I have, if you saw in previous videos with that, I've driven it from North Carolina to Florida and back without any kind of issues. And now I'm going to put the 2000 Accord to the test, kind of put my money where my mouth is. Now, even though the engine's new in this car, everything else is not. I have not changed the brakes on it in years. It's set for a year for the rebuild, and it needed brakes then. So that's going to be something that I'm going to address today. I've got some things on the bench that I'm going to go over with you and show you what we're going to do. Okay, the first and main thing that's going to get changed today, and this is going to be new front brakes, rotors, and everything. I went with a company that I found on Amazon. They had some pretty good ratings. I normally use AutoZone parts, but the price on this was pretty good. I thought I would just give them a shot. It's Detroit Axle is the brand name. And with the kit, you get the two front rotors. You get your pads that go along with that. They also include, which you can never have enough of, is a brake parts cleaner. And then finally, a little thing of DO3 brake fluid, which I have that in abundance, so that's not going to be, I'll put that in the hoard and have it for later. Since we are going to Texas, we're going to have some bug remover. Everything's bigger in Texas. I'm assuming that their highway insects are going to be much bigger as well. Now on the hose side of this, I have already replaced the upper radiator hose and the lower heater hose. So what I have here is a lower radiator hose and the upper heater hose. A few days ago, I was driving this car and it had a tear show up in the one that's on it. I had to cut that off and move it over. And so the hoses are just old. It's time to take care of that. Of course, we're going with an oil change, a new oil filter, and coolant to top all this off. Okay, before I jack the car up and get underneath it, this is what we're going to go after while it's on the ground. Is I'm going to get the upper radiator or the lower radiator hose disconnected from here, and then in the back here I'm going to get that upper, well actually it's the lower heater hose. This one's been replaced. This is the one that tore on me in this area right here. I'm going to get those pulled off. I have already drained the radiator. There we go. And this back one, just a little bit tougher to get to. There we go. And we're just going to pull that off of the valve there. And of course, there's plenty of water left in it after draining the radiator. Never enough. Now with the car up and of course supported by jack stands, please do not get under your car without jack stands. I can't say it enough. I'm ready to go ahead and take both of the front tires off, 19 millimeter. All right, now that I'm under here, we're going to go ahead and go after our drain plug, 19 millimeter. Let's see if I can do that. Get the plug, good job. Okay, now that that's slowed down to a drip, let's go and get the drain plug reinstalled. Give that a wipe-ola. And you should replace the crush washer on that. I don't have one. I seem to do all right using them 2 or 3 times, but I'm telling you to go and replace it. Okay, now my favorite part on all Hondas, let's go after at least the 4 cylinders. Let's go after the filter. Should only be hand tight. Get out of the way. Move my drain pan ready. And it's gonna all run down my arm like it always does. Hopefully not. See how quick I am. Oh, I made it that time. Car's been sitting a little while, so I guess I had time to get that drained out of it. All right, this is technically the first oil change since I had done the engine rebuild, but what happened, if you were following along before, the original filter that I put on, the oil filter, had split on me, and I had to take it somewhere and get somebody to basically did its own oil change. So I lost the first 100 miles or so of the oil change after the bearing replacement. So we're just going to take a good look at this, and we're looking for sparkly, shiny stuff, and I don't really see any right now. Once I get this pan drained out, I'll come back and look at it. Okay, now that I've drained that pan out, I'm going to take another look at it here, and I really wished I'd had the opportunity to look at the first oil that I ran through this, but after this, like I said, that was changed about 100 miles, and here we are after another 3,000 miles. I do not see any little silver flakes that show that the bearings were over-wearing inside the engine. I think I actually must have done a pretty good job of getting those things put in and set right. Okay, with the oil filter off, before I put that back on, I am going to go ahead. This is the hose that I'm changing. It comes off the back of your water tube. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. When I pull that off, I'm going to make sure I get out from underneath it because I know more fluid is going to come out. But before I get there, if you can see, if I can get my hand up here in the right way, my car has always been missing. I'm trying to get a better view here. There is a support bracket that goes from the bottom of the intake manifold and it attaches onto the engine block to help hold it up. I never had one of those. I dug one out of the junkyard the other day. It's going to attach here and on the bottom. And that's definitely a two-handed job. Let me go ahead and take care of that. As you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Okay, the bracket's now installed. The black one that runs there, again, I laid under one of those cars in the junkyard on gravel that's supported by old rims. It was attacked by spiders. I woke up the next day with about 4 or 5 spider bites. But that is installed. Now we're going to move on. We're going to grab this guy. I'm going to pull the fitting off. I'm just going to do it off camera. It's just like anything else. You pinch it and pull the clamp around, and then I'm going to get out of the way when I pull that hose because I'm expecting a lot of water to come out. And as you can see, it did not disappoint. I made sure I had myself out of the way when I took that one off. That's just water. Like I said, it blew that hose earlier last week, and I just replaced it with water because I knew I was going to be replacing all the hoses. All right. There we go. And we're going to just swap out the clamps to the new hose. And while I'm up here, I'm going to go ahead and grab this lower radiator hose. It has a little clip here that it goes through. Just take it out of that. And she's mine. And again, we're going to swap the clamps over to my new hose. Okay, I have the clamps put on my new hose here, and if you can feel it, they're very stiff, and as opposed to the old ones that get very mushy, and they just fail as they get old. They get hot. They have that caustic coolant running through them, and that's what happens. Pro tip for you guys: somebody asked this in a previous comment. When these are on the heater pipes and whatnot, and they'll fuse themselves to the pipe, and it's about impossible to get them off. So if you take your pair of pliers, get them so they're like that, and get them over the hose, over the connection actually after you pull the clamp back, and just give it a squeeze and wiggle back and forth, and you can feel it break loose, and then you should be able to pull that off with your hand. Okay, let's throw that in the garbage and get the new ones on the car. Okay, we're going to get the back one on now. The routing of this one's a little funky. I'm going to need 2 hands. I'll come back. Have the upper clamp on now. We'll just make sure you get those pushed back over where the connection ends in the hose. And of course, you have the back one ready to go as well. Now it's time to climb back under the car. Okay, we're ready to slip this over. There we go. Try to pull my clamp around where it's on the bottom. There it is. Makes it a lot easier to get to it. Voila. Okay, ready to go ahead and fill up my oil filter before I put it in. We'll fill that up about 3/4 of the way full. Looks good there, and then we're going to take some of the oil and we're going to actually coat the gasket with it so it doesn't go on dry. And also, when you good idea, just a tip, when you're changing these out, make sure that your old gasket came with the filter, because if it's stuck on the back of the block and you double it up, you're going to have a leak and you might end up ruining your engine before you catch it. Let's get this put back on. All right, let's see if I can get this up and manage not to get any on me. That went pretty smooth. And remember, only hand tighten these, don't crank down on them. There, that's tight enough for me. Okay, we're ready to finally top it off from the top, and this car takes 4.5 quarts. Remember that you've already put some in your oil filter at the bottom, so just keep an eye as you're going. I'm ready to move on to the brakes now. It makes it easier if you go ahead and you turn your wheel all the way over, so that way you can get to the back of your caliper and get the parts off that you need. And this side's not too bad. I can actually run my fingernail across it. I can feel the ridges, and the pads are pretty worn down. So it's time for this one to go. The other one that was the one that was a problem child. It may need a new caliper. I'm going to take a look at it when we get over there. So I'm going to run through this real quick. This isn't going to be really, this is how you do it. I'm just going to video me doing it, so guys like watching that stuff. And behind the guys, if you have your screws still in here and for whatever reason you can't get them out, especially on something that's 20 years old, drill them things out, and once you get them drilled good, bang them on the back with a sledge. And I wouldn't even bother putting them back in. All they're designed for is just to hold that rotor flat against the hub while you're installing your brake hardware. Let's get going.
Bam, there you go. I wasn't gonna make you watch all that again. Okay, we're gonna get the tire back on, torque it down to 80 foot-pounds on the lug nuts, of course. Be sure to pump up your brakes, make sure you get all that back. That's a good pucker factor when you forget to do that and you get going down the road and they go straight to the floor. And also, I am rotating the tires front to back on the same sides. Okay, with all that completed now, the last thing is gonna be to finally put coolant back into the car. If you don't own one of these filler funnels like this, go ahead and get you one. They're not very expensive. They certainly come in handy. A spill-proof funnel, I think is what you call it. It makes it very easy to bleed these systems out. And also, if you don't know, on the back of your F23, that is the bleeder for your air system. So when you start putting coolant in it, crack that thing loose. Don't take it all the way out. And once it starts having the fluid starts bubbling out through that, then you're going to close it back down with your 12mm and continue filling from the radiator. And I'm just going with the green 50/50. Okay, when you get to the point where it's not draining into the car anymore, before I even get it cranked up, like again, I come in and I squeeze all the hoses as I can get to them, and I try to get as much air out as I can, and that is usually enough. What I'll do is I'll run the car with the heat on to make sure I get the heater core filled back up properly, come back and top the thing off. All right, and finally, once again, for those Texas size bugs, we're going to go ahead and top off the window washer fluid. All righty. Okay, with that topped off, that's going to pretty much do it for everything that I plan to do to this car to get it ready for this long road trip that I have planned. Now, that's certainly not everything you need to do with a car this old that you should check. You should also, of course, make sure your tire wear is all good, that you have the tires inflated to the proper PSI. You make sure you check your spare, that's ready to go. Make sure you have all the tools needed to pick it up, get the lug nuts off, put a new one on the side of the road as well. Again, you want to go over your belts that are on the car, make sure your battery connections are clean and good and ready to go, and just give everything a good once over with a flashlight. Make sure you don't have anything frayed or on the way out. My main concern with this car, with the rebuilt engine, would be the cooling system. Has a brand new radiator in it. You see I have all new hoses in it. That shouldn't be an issue. The alternator is a possibility. That one still says Denso on it, which means it's factory original. It's possible it's been rebuilt somewhere along the line. I don't know, but we're going with it. Or maybe even a wheel bearing. That could be a possibility as well. I don't expect anything like that's going to go bad, but thumbs up, let's do this, right? So here's a picture real quick showing the mileage that's on this car right now prior to the trip. And hopefully when I get back, I'm going to show you the mileage when I got back, and it's not going to be sitting on the back of a flatbed that I'm having to pay somebody $1,000 to bring it back from Texas for me. With all that being said, I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you very much for watching.